In a Torah scroll, this week's portion, Parashat Beha'alotcha, contains a unique feature. One passage, just 2 verses long, is surrounded by 2 upside-down letters. The letters, nuns in Hebrew, represent parentheses that literally partition this passage from the rest of the text. The first verse in the passage begins, in Hebrew, Vayihi b'nesoah ha'aron, and it would be when the ark traveled. It describes Moses' prayer as the Ark of the Covenant set forth to lead the Israelites on a leg of their journey through the wilderness. The second verse begins with the Hebrew words, Uvenucho yomar, and when it rested, he would say. And it describes Moses' prayer as the ark settled back into the Israelite encampment when they reached their next destination on that travel through the wilderness. In our daily and weekly liturgy, the first of these 2 verses is recited to accompany the Torah scroll on its journey from the ark in the front of the sanctuary to the bimah, the raised platform in its center, from where the Torah is read. And then the second is recited as the Torah is restored to its place in the Holy Ark in front of the sanctuary. The sages of the Midrash ascribed great significance to these upside-down letter parentheses, explaining that they indicate that this passage actually constitutes a book of the Torah in its own right. Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ginsburg was an influential and very creative 20th century rabbi and communal leader. He explains that these 2 verses, this passage, is actually about war. The first calls on God to scatter the Israelites' enemies from before them as they traveled, and the second makes reference to the ark settling back among, quote, the myriads and chieftains of Israel. This is also a military reference. Rabbi Ginsburg explains that although military action is often justified and sometimes even necessary, a war footing should be seen as an exception, something unusual, a book in its own right, partitioned and set aside from normal day-to-day national life. The Israelites sometimes would have to march forth into battle as they made their way through the wilderness. But war and war-making would not and should not define their regular day-to-day existence. Now, this interpretation may seem especially countercultural today. The United States of America spends over $750 billion a year on its military, more than the next 10 countries combined. And the U.S. accounts for over 40% of global arms exports. Simply put, the military is inextricable from the American economy, and in a major way, the military defines America's presence in the world. The impact this makes on day-to-day life may be reflected in an American society with more guns than people, that suffers mass shootings on a daily basis, and where the threat, the specter of violence, feels perpetually just beneath the surface when it isn't bursting forth. Rabbi Ginsburg might tell us that in 21st century America, those Hebrew nuns have been erased. War and war-making are not just something that occasionally we do when we need to, but instead they've become who we are. They are our framing for the world around us. The challenge of these 2 nuns in this Shabbat's portion is in imagining what it would look like to reestablish those boundaries in our own lives and in our society. Shabbat Shalom.